Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Season 7, Episode 8.
Welcome back, friends. Today, I drove a couple of blocks away from my shop downtown to a shop that hasn't even opened. Our guest today has built a small online empire in a very short time. Welcome to the show, someone that I'm sure you've seen and wondered about if you follow me on Instagram, because I post about him pretty often. I'm talking about the Steve Hampton of Steve's Hemp.
How's it going, Chris? Good to be here.
Dude, yeah, thanks for welcoming me in. I've seen the shop underneath several different owners. This used to be Brand New Tattoo.
Yep.
Then it was my homies at Hello Adorn, which we actually recorded their episode here. That was like season 3 or whatever. And now you have this fresh slate that hopefully is going to turn into something super cool.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's been quite the process. Hoping it opens soon. We'll kind of go and see where it goes and go from there.
Yeah, we'll get to why it hasn't opened yet. But to get it started, people have seen you on my Instagram, so they already have follow Steve. But how can people best follow you and get in contact?
Best way is through Instagram. That's at Steve's Hemp WI. That is, Instagram shuts me down like once a month. So anytime you search Steve's Hemp on Instagram, something should pop up. So it might be a different username. Otherwise, our website is steveshemp.com or Facebook. They shut us down pretty often as well. But TikTok is like our biggest social media, and that's just at Steve's Hemp. So really, wherever you want to connect, that's where we're at.
I'll throw it out there. If you can't find Steve for whatever reason, I will for sure be able to find Steve because we're homies. So
yes, sir.
You can just DM me because I'm sure we'll be working together forever. We've been working together. So hit me up. If you can't find him for whatever reason, I'll point you into the right direction and make sure you're not on some fake account. You haven't had fake accounts, I don't think, pop up yet. Like
Not
I
yet.
Unfortunately have. But
Not that important.
I feel like you're important. You drive around a Tesla. Anyways,
Wow.
So who are you and what are you passionate about?
So my name is Steve Hampton. My company is Steve's Hemp. One of my biggest passions is the hemp industry and that sort of wellness, alternative wellness, I guess I should say. So that's been my focus for the past 2 years. Before that, I had a bunch of different passions, and this is kind of the one that stuck, and that's kind of what I've been going after and figuring out and running with.
Okay, so give me the quick 1-2 minute summary of your life leading up to this, because before I knew you, I just knew you were like Steve from Bloomer.
Yep.
I don't actually know anything else. So give me the little summary of your upbringing and stuff that led you up to this time.
Yeah, so it's actually Steve from Ladysmith. Not a lot of people know where Ladysmith is, but it's about an hour north of Eau Claire. It's about a town of 3,000 people or so. Went to high school there, graduated. Actually, I went from K through 12 in Ladysmith. So started there, grew up with a brother, and then my parents are divorced, so I have a stepdad that's pretty awesome as well. My life was kind of quiet, and I was really to myself when I was growing up. I had a lot of friends, but it was kind of one of those things where they were your friend at school or like on Xbox and stuff like that. But I always just stayed at my house most of the time, in summer. Playing video games and stuff like that. So, Xbox and gaming was kind of my life when I was younger. And YouTube. YouTube was one of my biggest babies when I was younger. I used to actually run a YouTube channel when I was, I think, 15 or 16, and that was an electronic music channel. So artists would submit their music to me, and I'd promote it on my channel. And we grew up to 17 or 18,000 followers. And then, I was 15 or 16 at the time. So it was kind of hard at that age to kind of know where to go with the channel. So the channel kind of died. And if you're familiar with YouTube and growing a YouTube channel, you have to constantly stay on the trends and grow from there. And if you don't, you'll get blown in the dust because people will lose interest and they'll go find other channels that, have the content that they're looking for.
So was that your first taste of some kind of hustle? Because most people that do entrepreneurship, right? I talked to Drew from Flavor World. He was talking about how his first little thing was his mom, he would draw little pictures of flowers.
Yep.
And he would sell them to his mom's friends and stuff.
That's awesome.
But usually there's something ahead of time. And those things are all stepping stones before you end up doing an actual business. So was the YouTube thing the first thing, or did you have some other side hustles?
So I'd say the first side hustle where I actually collected bank from was mowing lawns in the summer. My parents bought me a riding mower. I don't know how old I was. I'd say like 13 or 14 years old. And I'd drive it around the blocks and mow people's lawns for like $20 an hour, depending on the size of the lawn. I did that through the summer. And I think I did that for 2 or 3 summers. And I think I made like $1,000 a summer doing it. And that, to me, when you're at that age, $1,000 is like, you made it big. You're like, holy crap, I got more money than my friends do now. Did that for a while. And then I just kind of lost interest in it just because gaming was kind of the big thing that I wanted to do, and the YouTube channel. So I started out mowing lawns. After that, I worked at an Ace hardware store. That was my first actually like job. Worked there for probably about a year, and then I kind of tussled that with YouTube. And YouTube started to grow at that time. I had a video hit 1 million views, and it was like an electronic mix that I made. And funny story, I had a Mila Kunis image on the video, and that's what brought people to the video to listen. And so I kind of used that to get the views in. And then there was just some big artists on the song or on the mix that, you know, made it escalate up to 1 million views. And unfortunately, Universal shut it down because I didn't have rights for the song. So understandable, you know, I get it now. So yeah, it was mowing lawns, Ace Hardware, and then that really brought me into the YouTube side of things. Me and my buddies would play games, Minecraft, you know, Call of Duty, stuff like that. We tried doing some YouTube channels with gaming and stuff like that, but the electronic music one was the one that really just blew up. And when I started collecting money from that is when I said, see ya, Ace, you know, I'm on my own now. I'm a big boss, hashtag entrepreneur in my Instagram bio type stuff. So yeah, I did YouTube through high school, I think up to the end of my sophomore year, and then that's when it started to die. And then I focused on selling the channel, and I actually sold the channel for like $1,200 to somebody that wanted to, you know, revamp it and bring it back to life. But that's really hard to do if you have a lot of dead followers. And that's on any social media, Instagram, Facebook. If you have just a ton of followers that are fake or, you know, inactive people, it's just kind of hard to revamp that profile. So did that, and then sophomore year, senior year, I had an Etsy page where I sold earrings, like gauges and like ear stretching stuff. And that did pretty well. I think that was probably the most money I made. I think it was like $12,000 in like 6 months, which was insane, you know, even in high school. And then during the summers, I worked for the city as like a summer help position and did the street department and mowed lawns and patched streets and stuff like that. So that led me up to senior year. And then, was kind of out of the business game for a while because there was a few of them where I started and then lost interest, or they just really weren't booming. And if you're an entrepreneur, you really know that you have a lot of fails, and then soon something will click. And you'll realize that, oh crap, I should probably go ahead with this one, or I should probably put my head down and focus on this one because there's potential here. And so I kind of took some time away from that, focused on myself. I was really overweight. So that summer after senior year is, you know, I put my head down, lifted a bunch of weights, lost like 100 pounds, took a year off between high school and college because I wanted to get my mind right. And in my head, at the time, I thought, nobody's going to like me, especially at a new school. I have no friends if I'm overweight, which is not the case at all. But, you know, you get that in your head and it's like, well, I need to do something here. I need to change. And that's, you know, kind of the story, my high school story / entrepreneur story leading up to where I am today.
Sure. How old are you?
25.
Oh, you're younger than I thought you were.
Oh, okay. How old did you think I was?
Well, I just assumed you were closer to my age. So congratulations. You're
Thank you.
Well, because when I was growing up, YouTube wasn't a thing yet. Like, it didn't come out until I was in middle school or something. Well, when it like took hold, it was.
Yep.
Right. I know it like started to pop around a little bit before that, I think, or maybe I'm off. But anyways, all that social media, all those tools that allowed young people to have a business, pretty much didn't exist.
Oh, right.
So it was like not possible to do that type of thing. You know what I mean? So it's cool that you were able to recognize those opportunities so early. And I'm sure we'll talk about it further throughout this conversation, but all those skills that you learn end up translating into all your business things later on. So it's never about looking at it as a failure. It's like, okay, well, what did I learn from this that can put me in a position to do other things? Because the fact that you're able to talk about dead followers and how to grow a YouTube channel and how to follow trends and those types of things, knowing those things really helps when you're talking about advertising, marketing,
Yep.
building a customer base and all that type of thing, like through things later on.
I will say that once Steve's Hemp started to grow, all those fails from the previous businesses and ventures that I did, I was seeing them in each stepping stone of the success of the business. It's like, oh, well, I messed that up in this business, but I know not to do it this time in this business. So we're good there. We don't have to focus on that. I already have experience there. So yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about and like really focus on until you're in the moment.
Yeah, well, and you don't think about like, well, okay, I didn't own a hemp business before, but if I look at like my own trajectory, right? Like I own a business and I have a talk show. Well, I've been in sales though since I was 16, right? And I did sales for a lot of different types of things, a lot of different types of stores. I mean, I wore a suit every day and was a manager of a jewelry store. You know what I mean? So like I've sold to all kinds of different clientele, which is part of the reason that I'm comfortable talking to just about anyone and changing my whole like demeanor depending on whatever. And then after I opened my shop, I was doing a lot of events and I didn't have anyone to be on a mic. I never liked public speaking, but because I had to be on a mic for my own events, that ended up translating into me just being comfortable with my voice and being comfortable talking on something that I know people are listening.
Yep.
And that ended up making the show work better than I would have thought. And that in itself of like the show worked because I knew how to like put it out. I knew to do a whole season and then market it the correct way.
Yep.
I knew how to build a business and a following because of my store. Even though it's not the same thing as entertainment, a lot of those things actually do end up translating.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay, so I got to ask, because obviously if the passion is hemp, it probably comes from weed, I would assume.
Yeah.
So when did that kind of come into your life? You don't have to like totally criminalize yourself, not that anyone cares anymore, but when did that kind of come into your life? And why was it, I guess, like what was it about it that made you want to continue to use it and then eventually like make a business out of it?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story because growing up, I was never really a stoner or a pothead. I wasn't really into it. My parents were super lax growing up, so they let us go to parties, my brother and I, and they said, if you ever need a ride home, just call us. We don't care where you are, what the deal is, we'll come pick you up. And so they really never were strict to us, and they told us, well, if you're going to try something, at least try it once, but don't do anything super bad, because you could ruin your life from it. And so my parents never really pounded in our heads that marijuana was bad or any of that. You'd think like, oh, cocaine's bad or meth is bad, stuff like that. And so I was really never like shunned away from it, but I never really cared to try it. And I didn't care if anybody else tried it. I had nothing to do with it, and it's like, if you want to smoke it, go ahead. I don't care. Just don't like pressure me to do it. When I'm ready to try it, I'll try it. So really the first time that I tried it was with a buddy of mine from high school, and we were over there, and I can't remember what the deal was, or if there was like an event going on, or if we had a party or whatever. I think it just was him and I playing Xbox. And I don't know if anybody else has dealt with this, and I'm sure some people have, but like the first 3 or 4 times of trying weed, I didn't feel anything from it. The only thing I felt from it was like the CBD high you get. So you just feel calm and you just sit there and you're like, okay, this is nice. I'm just chilling. We were sitting on the couch, and the first time I tried it, I think I used a bong. So he had some weed that he got from a buddy. We grinded it up, put it in the bong, took a couple rips, and I felt nothing. I just felt chill. And I'm like, all right, so this must be what weed is. And I'm sitting there thinking like, why do people like geek out over this? This isn't anything special. So the next 2-3 weeks, I went over there a couple other times to hang out, do whatever we wanted to do. Same thing. Didn't feel anything. It was the 5th try that I went over there. We smoked 2 blunts, packed them and everything, and they looked terrible. We tried rolling them. It looked like a stick of gum. They were terrible. So we smoked both of those, and you know how weed is. You get the munchies, and then you feel like you can do anything pretty much. And we're like, all right, well, we're going to run to Walmart, grab some things like Oreos and some other things, and then head to McDonald's, get a McChicken, and head home. And he lived like a block and a half away from my mom's house. And so it was a skip away. But I took my brother's truck up there to smoke. And we were leaving like 25, 30 minutes later after we smoked them to go to Walmart. And I stopped at a stop sign, took a left, and I had one more stop sign and then straight, and I was at my mom's house. I was like 5 minutes from leaving the house, and I'm driving, and I look ahead, and the stop sign that's maybe 100 feet in front of me and the house at the end of the block just start like coming towards my face and like hitting me in the face. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I'm really tingly. I feel like a teddy bear, all fuzzy and warm and stuff, but I I was really anxious and my heart was pounding like crazy. My heart rate was probably like 150 or more beats per minute. And I look at my buddy and I say, buddy, I can't drive. And he looks at me and he's blasted. He looks at me, he's like, what do you mean, buddy? What do you mean you can't drive? And I'm like, buddy, I can't drive. Like, is this what weed's like? This is the first time it's hitting me. He's like, what are you talking about? We smoked a few times before this. And I'm like, I didn't feel anything before that. And I continue to say that to him the whole time. And we were 2 minutes from my mom's house. We were going to stop there, pick up some cash. My brother wanted me to grab some things from Walmart and then, make our way. And I said, I can't drive. He's like, dude, you're almost to your mom's house. What do you mean? And so it just kept going on and on and on. And finally I got to my mom's house and my brother was up in the living room and I walk in there and I said, you got to take Tristan home. I can't drive right now. Oops, I kind of incriminated him here on the podcast. Oh, well. And he looks at me, he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm not driving him. You go take him home. And I said, no, dude, I'm high. I can't drive right now. And he's like, all right, man, well, I'll take him over there. I ran into my room because my stepdad was up and he was always a night owl like we were. And I didn't want him to see me geeking out or any of that. And so I ran into the room, laid down, played some music so I could kind of focus on time. Because it feels like you're like in space and frozen. Or at least for me. I don't know if the stuff was laced or whatever it was. But that's just how I felt. And I probably fell asleep, 2-3 hours after that. And I woke up the next morning for school and I still felt high. And I told my mom to call me in for school because there was no way I was going in there. And the next day, the following day after I stayed home from school, I went back to school and all my buddies were just saying, what do you mean, buddy? You can't drive? How'd you get here today? Oh, and dude, they just roasted me the whole time. So that's my first real experience, just to say, with marijuana. And then after that, I kind of touched it, but I'm super sensitive to like anything THC or like even alcohol. Like I'll have 2 drinks and I'm buzzed. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's maybe because I lost weight and then my body's just like, all right, well, anything that's not water, we're going to react to. So I kind of gambled with like smaller doses to see what I liked and not overdo it, because when I overdo it, I get really anxious and paranoid like anybody else. So I really wanted to figure out what dose was right for me and like to really enjoy it. And so I did. And then edibles just kind of became my friend versus like smoking flower. And then I didn't really touch it after high school. And then college came, didn't touch it at all there, just because you're in a new city and you don't really know who you can trust. And you make friends in college, but sometimes you don't know if it's the right friend or, you know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
So I stopped touching it. And then my birthday came around, and this was June 2017. A few years ahead here.
Yeah.
That's when I really started looking into hemp. My dad bought me a bottle of CBD oil, and it was like 2,000 milligrams CBD oil. And that's some strong stuff for like a beginner. And I took it, and the reason he bought it for me is because I was into lifting and I was always sore, couldn't sleep and anxious because of college and blah, 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 blah. Took it like 20 minutes later. I just felt like bliss. Like I felt so calm and I was like focused and giddy and laughing and all this. I wouldn't say high, but you just feel good. And I'm like, holy crap, man, is this what like hemp can do for me? Like this is what I'm looking for out of like weed, but not the high part. And the company he got the bottle of oil from is a local company to us. They're actually about an hour north of here, and they have their own farm and everything. And I'm family friends with the whole owners of that company. And so I reached out to them and kind of talked to them about everything and how to get into the business. And that's kind of where it all started.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of like misconceptions with how all that stuff works, right? Mm-hmm. And we'll get into some more of that stuff later. But obviously, like, people are looking for alternative medicines. People are looking for other things to use, because right now Big Pharma has kind of controlled things for such a long period of time. Yep. Where people say like, oh, well, you can't smoke weed. That's a drug. It's like, well, yeah, but people are taking prescription Xanax too. So
right.
it really depends on like each individual person. But anytime we can look at something that's a little bit more natural as at least a potential, I think is a really good thing. Yeah. Obviously, anything can be abused, but the fact is we have this substance that has all these different cannabinoids that we don't do any kind of research on. There is potential for it to do a lot of different things if we were to just open up, research for it. Same thing with psilocybin. It's the same way, where it's like there's a lot of potential here that we really haven't searched into. But anyways, You're a big fan of entrepreneurship. You're a big fan of small business. I already know what your last job was, but I think that's kind of important to the story. So can you explain what your last job situation was and how that kind of impacted you and triggered your transition towards opening Steve's Hemp?
Yeah, so my last job, well, there was actually two of them at the time. So the last job that was like a smaller business was Midwest Meals. My buddy Dan Beck owns that. And he actually grew up in Ladysmith, and we went to high school together. And he was in my brother's grade. So acquaintances, had him in a few classes, just a really good dude overall. Worked with him for, I want to say like a year and a half, 2 years, did like meal prep and stuff like that. And basically what they'd focus on is building healthy meals that won't break the bank. Healthy, easy meals, I should say, because sometimes it's hard to eat healthy every day, especially if you want to go home and you're tired after work and don't want to, make a mess in the kitchen and then clean it up after, because that goes, there goes your night. So that's their focus. What I did there was digital marketing, and then I helped assist the kitchen manager there. So worked every weekend, and then during the week I did all the digital marketing stuff. And that's really where I saw like the first person side of owning a business and small business and stuff like that. And then like actually being there and helping it grow from, 500 meals a week up to over 2,000 meals a week. And it's probably even more now. It's been a couple of years since I worked there. So being able to physically see that firsthand really sparked my interest in like wanting to be a business owner. And they're all online too, but they do have a storefront in Eau Claire here that you can go buy meals that are already prepared. You just heat them up and call it good. But you can also order online for the week, and then they'll have it prepped for you. You just walk in on a Monday and they'll give you a bag full of stuff that you ordered. So it's pretty hit or miss there. So just being able to see like the potential that he had with his business over the course of probably 3 or 4 years now, might be even 5, and how much he grew, really what sparked it for me. And then that was pretty much my college job. Worked there because, I worked with my college hours and stuff. And then after I graduated college, I worked for an insurance company here in town. Worked there for, I want to say maybe a year and a half, something like that. Did digital marketing there, but I don't have any insurance, experience or anything like that. And so it didn't seem like they were willing to kind of teach me what I needed to know. And they really didn't know what they needed out of a marketing manager, because that was the first time I was their first employee in that position. And I had a lot of experience with digital marketing and design and stuff like that. But when you don't know anything about insurance and the company's not willing to kind of train you for that, it makes it difficult. And so that was the last job. I actually quit that job the beginning of this year, and it's probably the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah, stepping away so that way you can pursue what you're trying to do full time. I remember I was talking to this one guy I used to work with at Verizon, and I told him I was going to open my shop, and I was thinking about like maybe, because I made really good money working at Verizon, even though I hate the company. I was like, maybe I could work a couple days a week, make enough money to kind of supplement. And I'm not religious by any means, don't have any problem with it. But anyways, his saying that he told me was, "You cannot serve two lords." And I was like, huh. And he explained it a little further, and he's like, not talking about religion in this particular way, but talking about how if you really want something to work, you can't split your time and energy and focus between multiple things, because it's not going to work. Entrepreneurship is already hard enough as it is. It's way too demanding. If you want it to be successful, you kind of have to cut that safety net out. Maybe you need to work that for an extra 6 months to build up a little bit more of a nest egg. But really, once you go full time, if you want it to work, you have to put in full time and then some. So anyways,
for sure.
Talking full time and then some, there's like a million places you can buy CBD. You just discussed one that was up north, right? So what's your quick sales pitch as to like why people should get CBD from you rather than somewhere else?
Our main focus is that our products come from Wisconsin hemp versus anything else. Growing up in Wisconsin and being able to have that touch to our product is kind of one of my main focuses with the business. So knowing where your hemp is coming from is obviously a big game changer. And then one of the main things you want to look for when you're buying from a hemp company is if they have lab testing. Since it's not FDA regulated, it's kind of hard knowing what the heck you're putting in your body. Some companies don't even tell you what the heck you're putting in your body. They just put CBD on and they call it a day. A lot of fly-by-night companies, which is sad to say and sad to see, especially in the industry. But our main focus is to get lab tests on every product that we sell and educate our customers what each thing is that's in that product so they can learn and know exactly what they're putting in their system and what's helping them live a better life. So that's our main goal, Wisconsin grown hemp. That's where all of our products come from. And then that we are compliant with lab tests. And the lab we actually use is out of Florida, and it's a DEA registered lab. So it's a legit state-of-the-art facility where they tell you, exactly what's in your product, any heavy metals, any pesticides, any solvents, any of that. Ours are all passed, of course. I wouldn't sell anything that doesn't. That's our main focus.
Yeah, the problem is with CBD, or not the problem, one of the many problems is it's a very fast-growing industry that everyone wants a piece of.
Yep.
So you get a lot of these companies just putting out garbage because most people are uneducated. And then it's frustrating because you talk to somebody and they're like, CBD doesn't do anything. It's like, well, if you had the right one, it certainly does something, regardless of if it's what you want. It does something.
Yeah, there's plenty of studies.
Right. If you're taking something and you don't feel anything, then that's the product's fault. But because of that, people not only don't have an idea of like what the expectation really is, but they also don't really know where pricing should be.
Yep.
They don't understand why this one costs more than the other one. And it's like, well, because one doesn't do anything and a different one does. So it's one of those things where it's like people will continue to learn a little bit more over time. But right now it's just like kind of a baby industry, which is part of the reason so many people want to get into it.
Yep. There's a lot of, you've been to gas stations, you see signs that
totally.
say CBD sold here. And it's really hard to kind of understand what the heck is in that product. And they could have lab testing, but I don't want to buy my CBD from a gas station. That just seems kind of sketchy.
Yeah.
If it's at Quick Trip, maybe we'll talk. But
sure.
It's just, that's one of our goals is just to, give you a good product, not make it sketchy. We'll educate you on the product and so you know what you're taking. And then we go from there.
Yeah. Well, and in general, like you have your name on the company. The bottom line is if you were screwing people over, it'd be real public information real fast.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If that's one of the things when you own like a small business like that, you talk to it's even if they put an order and somebody else fills it or whatever, realistically, the owner you can get a hold of if you have something, and they're going to fix the problem for you if there is a problem because their reputation is significantly more important than your one random order is. That's how it is for me. Versus you talk about skateboards, it's like if you buy them from like a Shields or something like a sporting goods store, and I'm not trying to knock them as a company or whatever, but they have no expertise in it at all. They only carry it because they're like, oh, somebody might want to buy this. Not that they care literally at all about it, and they don't have any knowledge about it. So you can't hardly blame them if a board is good or bad because it may have been sitting there forever. It might be warped. The people there have no idea what it is that they're selling. And it's the same problem if you buy from a gas station, even if it's from like a more legitimate one, even if the company, the brands they're carrying are more legitimate, whatever, the people who work there aren't knowledgeable. So it's really important if you can shop from local places, whether it's Steve's Hemp or whatever, if you can shop from those and then maybe compare between those ones pricing rather than like looking at random online things. Yeah.
One of my main goals with starting the business was focusing on pricing because there's companies out there charging hundreds of dollars for the same product that I have that's $100 some cheaper. And the markup on any CBD product or any hemp product is insane. There's the cost that it costs me to make a product. Obviously, I have to buy in bulk, and I have to work with designers and get labels made and market it, the product and all that good stuff. That adds up in cost. But the physical product itself, compared from what I get it from to what I sell it, is reasonable. It's usually what a retail store sells it at, like 50% margin. There's companies out there selling it at 80%, 90%. It's like, why? I sell the same stuff. Your lab tests aren't even as good quality as mine. And obviously they have better marketing and they're working with celebrities or, influencers to get their product out there, and they have the capital to do that. I'm not at that point yet to where I can say, hey, Jennifer Aniston, you want to promote this product of mine? Here's $50,000. I'm not at that point yet. Hopefully one day, I don't even know if Jennifer Aniston uses CBD, but one day I'll get to that point. But yeah, it's sad to see that there's so many companies trying to make a quick dollar on something.
There's always going to be companies trying to poach off an industry that's doing good things because they see an opportunity for money. And that's the problem with corporations as a whole, and why, like in general, we should be a little bit more careful about giving any of these types of money or companies money. But anyways, so my Patreon page for the show is finally starting to grow. I have some really cool things happening with it that will have already be going out by the time this comes out. We're doing discounts with a ton of different people. I'm partnering that way where if you pay $5 a month to be a member on Patreon, to be a Patreon supporter of my show, patreon.com/passionpod, you get a discount at a ton of different stores, including yours, which is super dope. But another thing on there, I think of my favorite podcasts, and if I could be shouted out on my favorite podcast, I would like pay good money for that just because it'd be like an honor. It'd be like this cool thing. So anyway, so I don't charge my Patreon supporters for it, but this is the first time I'm ever actually having them on the show. So now my Patreon supporters are starting to submit some stuff, and I posted to our we have a private Instagram exclusively for the Patreon supporters because I do a lot of giveaways and different things. It's the easiest way to get across. Another thing I'm doing with it, which you're not aware because you're not a Patreon supporter of the show, at least as of the moment. I posted earlier today saying, hey, I'm going to go interview Steve. Who's got a question for him and wants to be shouted out, right? Exactly. Pretty cool benefit, actually, right? Yeah. So anyways, this is from Carter. His question was, if you could only choose one hemp product, gummies, oil, flour, or whatever else to use for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
Gummies, easily. A lot of people don't know this, especially with like the Delta 8 THC stuff that we sell, and we haven't even brought that up on the podcast yet. But it's another cannabinoid that hemp offers, that cannabis plant offers. Delta 8 THC in a gummy form metabolizes the same way as a Delta 9, which is marijuana gummy, does in your system. So it metabolizes as 11-hydroxy THC. Same effects you get. People say that Delta 8 is a little bit stronger. People say it's not. It's hard to say. Everybody's body's different. But gummies are just really enjoyable. I love sweets. I could chow down candy all day. Gummies are just, you work out, you pop a gummy, you're good. Flour's a close second, though, because there's nothing better than smoking a pre-roll after a stressful day, and then 10, 15 minutes later, you're feeling good and no worry in the world. So good question, Carter. I appreciate it.
Dude, yeah, my favorite thing from you for sure are the sleep gummies. Those things work really, really well. And I've posted about them a bunch on the thing, but really, like, I've struggled with sleep for a long period of time. It's one of those things where I have so much going on all the time. And that's not me trying to talk myself up. I just have a lot of things going on.
Yep.
I have a hard time falling asleep when I know I have like this long list of things to do. And so for me anyways, I eat one of those and it's pretty hard to stay awake 15 minutes later.
Dude, yeah.
Like I'm pretty much out, even if I'm like wide awake before that. So I suggest if I was going to pick one, I would suggest checking those ones out. I have another question. Actually, before we get to that, you gave me this. So this is another product that should realistically be out, but this is all part of that testing process, right? Rather than buying something, throwing your label on, we have something right here that hopefully we'll have out by then.
Oh,
I think you probably hear that. So what is this?
So this is a Delta 8 soda. So this is the first sample batch that we got in last week. We got about 40 cans in, and we're working with a company down in Alabama to manufacture this product. Basically, it's going to be a new company that, well, I'll just go ahead and say it on air here. It's called Bubble 8. The focus is that is a Delta 8 THC product. Delta 8 THC can give you psychoactive effects, much like marijuana. A little less potent by the science, but still gives you a good vibe and a good high. So what this product is Delta 8 soda. It's strawberry lemonade is the first one that we'll be producing. And so, yeah, it's just basically an alternative to alcohol. I'm not a big alcohol drinker. I think I might be allergic to some, like maybe 85% of alcohol, just because I get sick off of it pretty much after like 2-3 sips. Maybe that's why I get so buzzed so quick off like 1 or 2 of them. So this is going to be like an alternative to somebody that doesn't want to drink alcohol, but also wants to feel a little bit of a buzz and enjoy some time with friends that are drinking versus, smoking some weed that somebody down the hall might not like the smell of. So that's the focus with this, is to kind of bring a new product to the industry and go from there and get it in to liquor stores and, different shops all across the states.
So that's not going to be part of Steve's Hemp. It'll be its own.
Well, so it's the same entity. It'll be under the same LLC.
Sure,
but it'll be doing business as Bubble.
Sure,
8.
it'll be its own brand.
Yep, correct.
Cool,
Yep.
cool. Well, you're putting a lot on your plate because you're already crazy busy. But anyways, so the other question that we had, this one was from Courtney, who actually does a lot of photos for me, who you just met. She came in and took a couple photos of us quick. Her question was, what was the hardest part of starting a business in the hemp industry?
Oh, man. I'd say probably the hardest part is how saturated the industry is. There is a CBD shop on every damn corner in any of the states in the U.S. Or a gas station, where it's sold at. Everybody wants their hands in a CBD or hemp company just because of the margins that you can make off the product. And it's very lucrative if you're smart about it. So that's one of the hardest parts, was just like setting aside Steve's Hemp from, a bunch of other companies that are big and killing it in the industry. And to be honest with you, the one thing that really set us apart was a name change. When we first started the business in July of 2019, I think it was CBD Relief. And the reason I chose that name was because it was a very search engine search engineable or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
You type in CBD relief, and the goal was obviously to be on the top of Google when somebody would search that. Well, that's not the case. It's impossible with that common of a name to pull or to pop up on like the first front page. And Google doesn't allow you to advertise any CBD products or anything on there. So you can't even just like choose a word that, and pay for it and have it pop up. So that was the first idea and name that we went with. We ran with that for probably about 4 or 5 months. And then it just, I don't know, it wasn't me. I wanted something that was like, my name was on it and I really cared about it. I was very passionate about it and really wanted to focus in on it. And Steve's Hemp really came to mind. There was a few other names that I wanted to go with, like, I honestly can't even think of them. But they just didn't feel like me. And Steve's Hemp was really kind of the one that stuck. Obviously my short name is Steve, full name is Steven with a PH, don't forget that. But everybody called me Steve because nobody could spell or pronounce my name right. So that's really what set it off and what really set me apart. I have constant customers that message me and say, is your name really Steve? Or are you actually Steve that's messaged me back about a problem? And so being able to say, yes, I am Steve. I'm the one that created this business. How can I help you today? Stuff like that. Making it really personable for the customers, always been the goal. And once we did that name change, people really started to see that, oh crap, Steve is actually running this business. It's just not, an MLM that somebody's roped him into. He's actually, going balls to the wall in the hemp industry. Wow, this is awesome. Let's try his product.
Yeah. Well, I think like I always tell people there's a couple different skills. The first one that I told you or mentioned before was most successful people identify the right opportunities and pursue them in that moment, because if it's a really good one, somebody else will hop on. So you gotta act fast. The other one is the best salespeople, they don't sell products. They sell themselves as a solution to people's needs. So when you have something like Steve, they know it's you and they're coming to you because you're going to give them that advice and they're going to trust you, which comes back to that whole idea of you have to do what's right by people. You have to, because the second people think that you're not doing what's right for them, your whole reputation is ruined, which is 100%. Your name of the business, which is honestly, I don't think it's hard to just do what's right by people when you come from a small thing like us, because we don't have this outside pressure from shareholders and from other employees or from other advisors telling you, well, you need to produce 10% growth this quarter or whatever. Like, we don't have those outside pressures to do things that force you into trying to make uncomfortable decisions. We can just allow ourselves to grow at the right speed when the right timing goes by, which for you, thankfully, the growth has been really fast.
Yeah, man, it's been crazy.
So one of my favorite things about being an entrepreneur is that there's different paths to get to anything. You don't actually have to follow. Well, honestly, like if there was just a straight out outline and everyone followed it, it would be really boring and it probably wouldn't work because everyone's already doing it. So you kind of have to get creative. And another thing that's cool is different like platforms pop up. There's all these different tools that pop up over time, right? Instagram, as an example, is like a huge tool that I use for my show that I could not do this show in the way I do it without Instagram. There's no way that I would be able to meet and connect with people on the other side of the country all the time to do this and get listeners out there and stuff. You know what I mean? Downtown Eau Claire, I could go around and talk to business owners and that's all great. But I don't want my show exclusively out of Eau Claire. I do want to make a point to talk about my show in Eau Claire, saying that my show is not about Eau Claire, but I don't want to leave all the homies behind. So as I grow my show outside of the Eau Claire area, I always plan on still having people in Eau Claire on the show because I want to bring my city up because I love this place way too much. Anyways.
Me too, man.
Talking about different platforms, different things. I remember you kind of came into my shop and you were talking about a platform I don't even use and about how that kind of like pretty quickly was blowing you up. Can you explain that?
So I'm probably going to get shamed for this, but TikTok is the platform. Myself, like many others that are my age, saw TikTok as like a child app. People were posting on it and it was actually, I think it used to be Musical.ly where people would go on there, lip sync to songs, and then they post their video. And then it was bought out and became TikTok. I downloaded it. I don't know when it was, maybe the start of quarantine, and just got sucked in. Like, spend hours on there scrolling through videos. And they're like, when I first started, it was like 60-second videos, so you couldn't really get too creative, but it was enough to keep somebody's attention. So I stayed on there for a couple months, created the Steve's Hemp username, and then just kind of just watched, what trends were going on, what video types people were doing, and what really went viral. And this video popped up on my page, and it was talking about Delta 8. And it was this dude just basically saying, Delta 8 is a legal THC that you can get. It's from hemp, and you can get it shipped to your door. Go get it, pretty much. And I commented on there and didn't think anything of it. And I said, yeah, Delta 8 is great. We got the good stuff here. And like, it blew up. The comment had probably like 50,000 upvotes within 3 or 4 hours. And thankfully I had some videos on my page at that time, where I was able to put the link into my bio where my website was. And I had a TikTok coupon code that people could use as well. And every hour I had over 1,000 people on my site that between that night and the following week. And that was last December. So I don't know, 10 months ago, maybe a little shorter. And it's just been pretty much up from there. And it's one of those platforms where I just kind of just doubted it and didn't think anything of it. And it set me free from my 9-to-5 job that I hated. And just thinking how much that platform has done for me in this little of time has been incredible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the platform is a very unique thing that is great for certain types of things,
Right.
for sure. And I was talking to my friend Miles Hass, who was on the show not long ago. He owns, well, you can look him up. Incredible genius of a human, super cool dude, and owns the biggest like ladies' night in the world randomly. Yeah. So he's a bad. He was talking to me about TikTok, about saying like, look, even if this platform isn't here forever, right now, it's incredibly good for advertising and marketing for me. And I'm like, no, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, and that goes back to that piece of advice I said before and over again, is when you see that right opportunity, pouncing on it. And you saw that comment going and you pounced on it, recognizing, hey, this is possible for me to get people to come to my website to be clients, rather than just like, oh, cool. You know what I mean? You saw that and you recognized it. And that's like the important part. So I'm glad that it's doing incredibly well. It obviously is, because you got this sweet Tesla that we're going to go cruise around in. That's all wrapped. That thing's dope. But anyway, so you ended up signing a lease on, honestly, a really good storefront where we're sitting. This is a very high trafficked area that's only going to get more because more stuff's being built. I would prefer to be in a place like this than where I'm at. I'm not going to change where I'm at because I'm like really settled and people know it and whatever. But originally, if I had a choice, I would have been here. However, you've been so busy and doing so well online that this was going to be open a while ago and it really hasn't. So a couple of things. Why did you? I want to say, for one, it's important to allow business to go the way it wants to.
Right.
It needs to be fluid. Sometimes, even if you really want something to happen or work a certain way, if it's not working that way and something else is, you have to be not that stubborn and let it kind of flow in the direction that it wants to. But that being said, what was it that kind of stopped you from opening this yet? What's your general timeline, and what do you want to do with this store? Do you still want to have a storefront? Like, what are you kind of thinking?
So I'll start this off with, I am the only one in the business doing everything. So I pack all the orders, I contact all the customers' questions, I do all the marketing, I do all the social media posts. Well, I'll take that back. My girlfriend does the social media posts. So I'm really the only one that's kind of doing everything. My girlfriend helps as much as she can, but she has a full-time job as well, and that really drains her after work. And so she doesn't have much that she is willing to do after that. So the goal was to really open this place up and make it a storefront to go along with the online theme that we already had. But doing it out of your house, which is where I've been shipping my orders from. I have an office that I have all my product in. I shouldn't really say this online, but just don't come rob me. So I have an office that all the product is in, and so I do all the work out of that office. And it's gotten to the point now to where I can't do everything myself anymore. And looking ahead, nobody's going to want to come to my house and work for me out of my office that's 100 square feet and pack product or package product and ship orders and stuff like that. And so, yes, I wanted this to be a storefront, and that would be killer. Eventually, one day, I'd like to have that happen. However, I need somewhere where people can come and work and package product, ship orders, reply to customers' questions and stuff like that first before we really jump into the online or the in-person sales. And if this storefront was maybe 1,500 square feet more, that would be the case. But right now, we're not thinking that it's going to be anytime in the future. I'd say maybe in a year. We'll kind of have to see how this next coming year does with our online side of things. But for now, it's a killer area to ship product and package product. And customers will still be able to order online if they're in the Eau Claire area, come in here and pick up their product. We just won't have in-person sales where walk-ins can, come in and talk. If you want to come in and talk to me while we're packaging flour or making gummies or whatever it may be, you're more than welcome to. But we just won't have a till or like a POS system where you can, give me cash and I'll give you a product.
Sure. And like I said, it's important to be able to kind of be fluid with that, with what's working. You could take your time away from the online sales that are making money and building that in order to have the storefront, but why would you want to do that when what's working is working? So you might as well keep doing that. And we'll see, maybe your lease will end up here and you'll find a different spot that you need more square footage. Things are evolving fast, especially in the very beginning of a business. You have to kind of allow it to evolve the way it wants to go, and it doesn't always go the way you initially intended. You know what I mean? Same with my show. Like I did the first season, and I immediately was like, well, I'm gonna try to line it up. So I do a couple episodes in New York. I'm going to do some episodes in Miami. I'm going to do some episodes. I kind of wanted to do that. Then the pandemic hit and I had to do local ones, which is kind of cool because it set my base up more. I won the Volume 1 Best Local Podcast, even though at the time I was like, my show's not even about Eau Claire. And that was like, the description was like, Chris Johnson interviews local people. And I'm like,
oh no,
I didn't want to be pigeonholed to be that, but that's okay. I got my sweet little award.
Right.
But anyways, now I end up going to LA all the time because that's just kind of how I built my network and it's working. So I'm not upset about it. It's definitely working, but it wasn't exactly like necessarily the way that I thought it was going to be.
And the guests that you've had from LA have been incredible. So that's great.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very, very happy with it. The cool part about going out to LA is that no one's from there.
Right.
And everybody has their own stories. So, and there's all these creatives, right? So I can get a very, very diverse group of guests that are all doing really, really well and have notoriety and have connections to other people. It really is the best way for me to go out and just get a bunch of the type of content, get the interviews that I'm looking for in a short period of time. I am going to be continuing to do Eau Claire people. I have a lot of things in the works that I'm sure will be out by this point, including my show being on Converge Radio twice a week. So that way once a week, it's just local people, and bonus episodes and all kinds of other stuff. Anyways, you have to face more challenges than most businesses. I can just post on my Instagram. I don't have to worry about it. I have friends who do like nude photography and that like is an issue for them or whatever. Your stuff just gets taken down all the time. You obviously you sell Delta 8, but who really knows if it's going to stay legal? So like that's its own scary thing. What are some of the biggest challenges for your business? What are some of the biggest roadblocks, things that you're worried about?
Man, probably, there's so many. It's crazy. And there's probably like the first 6 months of when I started, I second guess myself every day. It's like, dude, this isn't worth it anymore. It took me 6 months to find a financial that would work with a CBD company. Instagram and Facebook were constantly taking down my images. I couldn't advertise on Google or Facebook or anything like that. And I went to school for digital marketing. And so I was taught how to use ads and put ads here and, dump money into this. And not being able to use those was like really hard for me to kind of grasp. So I guess the hardest part overall is just kind of being silenced in the industry. One of my main goals is to kind of post on social media what I'm doing, the product I'm working with, and what it's about. I hate having to make it so vague where somebody doesn't know what the heck I'm talking about. And the only way that they can understand it is if they message me and I have to go back and forth with them, on DM and talk about the product. I want to be able to talk to my audience and my customers one-on-one and tell them, all right, so Delta 8 THC is from cannabis. We extract it from the hemp plant, and this is what it does. It can get you high if you get a good product. I recommend gummies. I can't even talk about Delta 8 on any social media platform without them flagging it, taking my account down, whatever it may be. I think I've gone through 5 Instagram profiles this year, and it's, every time they get taken down, I just sit there and it's like, dude, is it worth it anymore to be even on social media? And Instagram's my baby. TikTok I have more followers on, but Instagram is really personable. Customers can message me on there if they have an issue and I'll get back to them within 20 minutes. But yeah, not being able to voice my opinion on something or tell somebody what my business is about or share a picture of a hemp flower that looks like bud but isn't, and it's federally legal, and Instagram slaps my wrist with, this is illicit. This is regulated goods. Why are you posting this? It's like, dude, if you would get your head out of your ass you'd understand that this is hemp, it's federally legal, and here are my lab tests. Like, this lab test tells you this flower that I'm posting in this picture is legal. Why are you taking it down? And so not being able to express myself or express my products is probably the hardest part, because nobody can really learn about you or your products unless you're like real with them, or you drop the description of what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very limiting. But now that you said the first 6 months you were questioning, what was it that triggered you to stop questioning it?
So after those 6 months, there was, a couple months where I tried selling the company, just because, I went to school for digital marketing, and web design was like my baby. I love designing websites and selling them and this and that. And I'm like, well, I can't get silence designing websites, and you can make a lot of money off one website, so maybe I should pursue that. But we rebranded, and we went from CBD Relief to Steve's Hemp, and I did a sale to sell out of all the stock of the product that had the CBD Relief label on there. And I did like $1,000 in a day. And I was talking to my dad, because he was the one that was interested in buying it from me. And then him and I would work together and kind of grow the business that way versus, just me. I'd be like a 20% owner and he'd be 80%. So I was kind of hands off if that was the case. But after that sale we ran, I told him I did $1,000 in a day. He's like, man, you really need to focus on this. You need to do something with this. He said, just, bring new products in, gauge the market, see what's selling, see what's good, and then work with your manufacturer and see if they can bring a new product in, or, kind of give you some insight on what's doing well and kind of go from there. And so, that was in like February of 2020 is when I tried selling it. And it just, I couldn't sell it because, at the time I was asking $6,000 for the company and the product, which is, not a lot of money compared to where we are now. And, I'm just like, well, whatever, I'll just see what I can do. And so 10 months later is when the TikTok blew up, and, it's all kind of paid off now. And I look back, a year and a half later and just say to myself, like, dude, could you imagine if you would have sold this? This goes to show that if you focus on something for longer than a year and a half, 2 years, you can actually do something with it. And yeah, so that's kind of been the turning point and kind of what I focused on.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I tell people all the time, when they start their businesses and they're just getting frustrated, they're like, man, I can't make any money. There's all these things. I have to work all the time. I'm not doing whatever. And I explained to him, like, look, it takes a long time to get past that. And there's a reason not everybody works for themselves. You have to be willing to work very hard, and you have to really trust that it's going to pay off, because you don't have anything out there to guarantee it.
Yep.
But when you can break through all those types of things, when you've laid the foundation of all of this, then things start to pay off. I look at it with the show where my shop is established enough. It's a little skate shop. It's not like it's this huge financial empire. It's just a little shop. But after the first couple of years, seemed like every week something came up that I'm like, I don't know how to handle this. What do I do? I've got my shop broken into, or, whatever. Like, there's a lot of things that came up where I'm like, what am I going to do? And eventually those things started to fade. Problems came up less and less. The things that did come up, I already handled before, so it was really easy to handle. And more customers were coming in because my reputation got slowly better, because reviews slowly built. And I was like, oh, okay, everything's working. Well, then I restarted with the show, and I put all this time and energy into something where, like, my time is valuable.
Yep.
But with the show, it isn't, because I hadn't proven anything to anyone. And I'm about 2 years in now, and I would say I'm still very much in the red. But this season is the very first one where all of a sudden I think I have more money coming in than expenses.
Right.
And that's so exciting to see. And it took 70 plus episodes in 2 years of my life to get to that point. Now, if I continue, it's all of a sudden going to be so much easier and so much more enjoyable, because I pushed through that. But there's a reason. I think the stat is most podcasts last 7 episodes before people get sick of it, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, and they don't see that instant,
instant gratification.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My buddy and I, he's also an entrepreneur. We sat down, probably a year ago after we graduated college, and said, what do we see trends of in business here? And majority of these small businesses that you see, they're 2 to 3 years old, and obviously not every business is the same. Some could be 3 to 5 years old. But anyways, that 2 to 3 years old is usually the sweet spot of, once you've been running for almost 3 years or 4 years, whatever it may be, that's when you start to see success or growth come in. And now that doesn't work for everybody, but for myself, it has, and for him, it has. And so it's kind of crazy that, if you focus on something for longer than 2 years or whatever it may be, that there's always light at the end of the tunnel. There's an image that he always sends to me, and it's two guys, they're in a mine, and they're mining for diamonds. One dude mines, he gets a huge diamond right away, and runs off. Well, the guy that was mining below him is very close to that mine pile or that vein, whatever you want to call it. But he sees the guy above him got giant diamonds. So he goes to that tunnel and starts mining his stuff. And so he misses out on that opportunity because he didn't, keep his head down and focus on what he was doing. He just, thought, oh, this guy's vein's better. He's probably got more diamond over here than I do. When in reality, if he would have kept doing it, he'd be successful.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a special type of person.
Yep.
And I've said this to a lot of people too. You have to trust your gut because
for sure.
you know more about your business, the intricacies around it, your industry than nearly anybody possibly could because you know your market. You're the one who spent all this amount of time. So your educated guess is almost always going to be better than anybody else's educated guess. I don't care if they've been successful in the same industry.
Right.
The bottom line is you spent all this time around this very specific business, around all your specific clientele in this time frame. You have a better idea than almost anybody. I'm not saying don't take any advice at all, but you got to trust yourself and you got to know that this will come if you keep working hard. It's just going to take a long time. When I was talking to Cameron Davis, he's a photographer. This was a couple seasons ago. And he said, it's funny. If you were to ask somebody, one of two things, would you be willing to put in or spend 10 years in jail, but then be able to do anything you want and not worry about money the rest of your life? A lot of people would say yes, but they wouldn't just put it in for something like a career, right? So like with owning a business, I usually don't use a 10-year comparison, but I use the same comparison as far as like going to college. And I say, well, a year of college, you're dropping 20 grand into, right? And you're dropping a lot of time and energy into, and you might switch your major. It may not work out. And frankly, you're out 20 grand. You are $20,000 in for 1 year of education or whatever the dollar amount is. For opening a business, if you have 20 grand, if you're willing to take out a $20,000 loan and for 12 months pursue a business idea, you're going to learn way more than college ever would. It may or may not work out, but you're going to learn a hell of a lot more.
For
you know what I mean? You learn,
YouTube is like the best. YouTube is the best. That is where I taught myself Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, all of that, After Effects from YouTube. And those are thick programs. When I was in college, we had a class where you were video editing and you had to record a commercial for the college. And we did that. And I was like the only one in that classroom, besides the professor, that knew what was going on, which obviously you're trying to learn the program. But there were questions that students had that the professor didn't know the answer to because she's new to the program and doesn't really know the answer or the shortcut to get that thing done. I stood up and I said, hey, yeah, I can help you with that. I have the experience. So it's like, it makes me question, or at that time it made me question, all right, what the heck am I doing at college? I know more than the professor in this class. What the heck is going on? I don't regret going to college. Thankfully, I went to the tech, so I'm not too deep in debt. But looking back now, it's like, well, I probably could have saved some money and focused on something a little bit better. But I've made incredible friends from it. I've learned a lot, personal experience, and I really had bad anxiety going into college and talking to people and recording myself on video and all that good stuff. And college kind of brought that out of me and made me a different person. It made me the Steve I wanted to be. And I didn't mean to take away from college because college obviously has it, but it's more the analogy of like, people are willing to put in the time of college and say, like, I'm willing to be 60 grand in 4 or 5 years in before I try my career. But people are really afraid to take even 10 grand out and put it into a business. It's just about flipping the perspective. So just curious, my favorite thing is the freedom of it. But what have been your favorite things from working for yourself so far? I'd say probably the craziest one is the potential earnings. You're not capped at like a 9-to-5 salaried position where, well, I'll just go ahead and say at my insurance job I was making $40,000 a year. At the time, fresh out of college, holy crap, that's a lot of money. That's insane. However, if you think about it, you're giving this person, 40 hours a week for who knows however long, and then you're going home and doing it again the next day. And then you're capped at that, $2,500, $3,000 a month. owning your own business, if you want to make 50 grand in a month, you put your head down and you go get it. Like obviously that's hard for some companies to say, especially if you're new to the business or whatever, but the potential is there. As long as you can focus on it and understand what you're doing, you can do it. And, I have buddies that are entrepreneurs as well. And it's kind of the same case. 1 month, if it's slow, okay, well, what did I do different this month compared to, the month that was higher previous? And you can see what your error was, and then you can correct it the next month. And so just the earnings that are possible. And, I don't take really anything out of my business, funds wise for myself. I take what covers my bills and that's it. Everything gets reinvested into the business. And then along with the earning cap or not having an earning cap, the freedom. There's nothing better than waking up at like 8 a.m., which some people may say early, may say it's late, and then like making yourself breakfast and sitting down and figuring out what you have to do for the day. Where before in my past life, I was waking up at 6:30, taking a shower and being a zombie all day at a freaking desk. And so, just learning a lot about yourself, being an entrepreneur is probably the best part, and all the possibilities you have.
They're endless.
Serious.
That's the cool thing.
And that's legit.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but everything you've built can be moved. Realistically, at any point in time, you could decide, I don't really want to do CBD.
Right.
And you could move your entire business into something else and it's not gone because you own all of that.
Yep.
And talking about money's not like a huge motivator for me by any means, which if I want to make money, I wouldn't put my time into a skateboard shop and a podcast. Like, let's be real.
Yep.
But even so, almost every extremely wealthy person is an entrepreneur because that's like where it comes from. There just there isn't a ceiling on what money you can make. But not only that, it allows you the freedom to do a couple of different things, right? You can sit and you can work way, way, way more hours in order to make more money, or you can do the opposite and you can decide I only want to work 20 hours a week because I make enough off 20 hours a week and I can go hiking every day, or do whatever. You have 100% freedom to do that, which is such an empowering feeling.
And the best part about it is it doesn't feel like you're working.
Right.
Well, for some people, yes.
I burn myself out because I'm doing too much, but it doesn't feel like work. It's the same type of feeling as if I overcommitted to hanging out with too many friends. It's exhausting.
That is a very good example.
But it's not work by any means. So we're getting towards the end of the show. I always like to ask people, can you share a unique experience, something you're really grateful for, like a specific one, but it only happened because you chose this path?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say going back to when I was trying to sell the business, my dad and I sat down together. We kind of really spread it all out on the table. We looked at numbers and what I was willing to do in the next year and kind of figure out what the best option was for the business. And he's always, he's been a hard all his life. And I guess I wouldn't say a hard ass, but he's stubborn like I am. We think what we're thinking in our heads is the right option and nothing else goes. Obviously not the case, but when you're stubborn, you're stubborn. Well, he's the same way. And thankfully he is, because if I do something wrong, he'll let me know I did it wrong. He's like, well, I told you so. And it's like, well, come on, just give me the option to, mess up and learn from it versus, stepping up and saying, well, I told you so. Why'd you go ahead and do that? But just having him be able to sit down with me and talk with me, one-to-one, and say, hey man, I think you really have potential in this. He said, if you go ahead and put your head down and really focus on this, you can make something out of it. And, when you're in that position at that point in time, you don't feel like that's the truth. You're like, oh, he's just saying this because he loves me and wants me to succeed. But does he really mean it? But yeah, I think about that every day, is just him telling, go ahead, go for it. And my parents are divorced, and so it was 50-50 split time, but there was some times where I stayed more at my mom's and less at my dad's, blah, 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 blah. So I didn't really get to see him much through high school, just because of personal things that went on. And from that, so I didn't really, get to talk to him much about like business ventures or like personal things, because it always seemed like he was busy doing other stuff or whatever it may be. But I'd say like 2 or 3 weeks ago, he came over to my house and we were talking, and he picked up some product from me and stuff. And it was the first time I heard him say he was proud of me with the business. And dude, I started crying after I heard that. And being able to have that connection with my dad and him there right by my side, and him help me with the business has been like the most, best thing ever. I love my dad.
Dude, I feel that. I love my dad a lot. But I have been leading him in on conversations to try to get him to say that he's proud of me for years.
Hard.
And that's how like a lot of men are. But like, I've been trying to get him to say that because I want him to say it so bad. I mean, he doesn't listen to the show, so otherwise he would hear this and then say something. But he's not going to hear this anyways, dude. Seriously, not that long ago, I said something to him about it. I was like, there's a lot of people that listen to the show through the radio and everywhere else. Not trying to toot my own horn, but there's a lot of people that think what I have to say and the people I talk to have to say is worth time. And frankly, you have a lot of free time. You're retired. You don't really do anything.
Yep.
You should listen to my show. It's good. I promise you at this point in time, this long into it, my show is good. Just listen to it. And then he listened to one and then was like, yeah, it was really good. So now you can't say I didn't listen to it. And I'm like, just listen to my show. Yeah. I'm been begging for that forever.
Be a big fan.
Anyways, I want to go back to one other thing you said. And you're talking about with your dad saying let me learn on my own. This is a mistake that I've made. And we'll get to a mistake with you here shortly. But this is a mistake that I've made. I have taken somebody else's advice because I thought they knew more than what I knew. And then they were wrong. And you know what? I didn't learn from my mistake now. In fact, I wouldn't have made a mistake in the first place. All that happens from that is that I'm angry that I didn't trust myself.
Yes.
Versus if you trust your own gut and you make a mistake, it's a lot easier of a pill to swallow because you have no one else to blame but yourself. And now you really learned because you saw how you made that mistake. So I encourage people, unless it's your whole everything depends on this one particular thing, I encourage people to trust their gut because even if you make a mistake, you'll learn a lot more from it than if you trust some random other person. It's not their business. It's your business.
Right.
There's a reason you have it.
One thing I learned from, being a business owner and now putting quotes because yes, the business is successful, but I, to myself, don't see it as successful yet, is that I stopped listening to people's opinions. I used to ask my friends, what do you think about this design? Or what do you think about this product or this review or this and that? And, I used to take what they said back to me to heart. And it really affected how I ran the business. That was before the business started growing a ton. And I think it kind of just stunted the growth of the business because I cared too much about what people thought of myself, of the products I was selling. And to be honest with you, I felt like I didn't know anything about the industry or my products. And I felt like an imposter or like a poser almost in the industry of hemp. And if I wouldn't have listened to opinions or just went and did everything on my own and figured it out, I would be further. But you can't really knock it until you...
Yeah, well, actually, I think it was on some random Instagram story or something, but Casanova is a rapper out of Minneapolis who was a guest on my show a while ago, and I very distinctly remember it. I think it was an Instagram story. He was driving, and he just was videotaping himself, and he said, and he doesn't have great grammar because he was talking all gangster.
Oh, gosh.
But anyways, the point, anyways, that he said was, stop taking advice from people that haven't done what you're trying to do. Because their opinion doesn't mean anything. They haven't done it. Why take their advice? That's stupid. You know better than they do, which is very true. So that's not to say you can't take advice from somebody, but it does mean you should really consider the source.
Yes.
Is the person who's giving you this advice knowledgeable about what's actually the best for this type of thing in any kind of way? Do they have any base on that? Or is this just their friend because they want to help you? Because even if they want to help you, they don't actually know. That'd be like going to somebody with a calculus problem that hasn't taken the class and saying, what do you think? They don't actually know. So you got to take it with a grain of salt. If you need advice and you want to go from somebody, it's important then to look at somebody that you idolize in any kind of way for whatever reason, maybe not entirely, but for whatever individual thing, and then ask their advice about that individual thing and then consider it. You know what I mean? So the source that comes from is really important. I don't know if you want to share another mistake because that was a really good one. So it's totally up to you. But I usually like to ask people to share a story of a mistake that they made. Again, a story of something specific that taught you something valuable that someone listening might benefit from.
Yeah, I got a good one here. So when you start as a business and you have a product, oftentimes you don't have a lot of good product photos. And unless you're a photographer or you have a photographer friend that could hook you up with a good few images. So our biggest issue when we first started was having a legit picture of the product that wasn't from an iPhone and actually looked good. And I didn't have enough money to get a photographer to come and take a bunch of pictures. And so I made do. Well, we went on Flickr and there was this image. It was a CBD oil dropper dropping in. The vial was open and the dropper was dropping into the vial. And you could see the golden oil. And next to it was a little case and it had a company's logo on it. Well, I downloaded that image and I'm good at Photoshop, so I put my logo on it. However, I made sure to note that the image, was copyright free, and I was able to use it as long as I, mentioned the company that took the picture or mentioned the photographer that, did the picture. And I did that. Well, there's these things out there. And if you own a business or have any kind of website, what it does is it's a program that crawls these websites, and it catches these images that somebody may go to somebody and say, hey, this is my image. Can you go around Google and see if anybody's using it? And they catch people that use them, and then they send them a piece of paper from a lawyer office or a law office stating, hey, man, you're stealing our image. Time to pay up. And that happened to me. I'd say it was probably in November of 2019. So we were a few months into it, and this law office got in contact with me, and they're like, hey, man, you're not supposed to be using this image. This is so-and-so's. Did you link to their image and give them credit for it? And I'm like, yeah, I did on the back end with alt text. And alt text is something that Google sees, and it decides how to rank it on Google Images. And so I gave them credit that way. I didn't give them blatant credit underneath the image because that would look weird, which I probably should have, but I didn't. However, the form said, hey, man, you got to pay up $2,500 for this image. And that's the minimum. It might be more depending on how many sales you got from the image, blah, 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 blah. Well, I got in contact with the company and said, hey, I use this image. It said I could give credit and I wouldn't have any issues. And I did. And they're like, that's not good enough. So I contacted a lawyer in town here and just consulted with them and said, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Do you think this is legit? And he said to me, he's like, there are so many law firms that do this. It's basically filler work to make some extra revenue because it's a scare tactic that will get these small businesses to rake up, $2,500, $10,000, whatever it may be, and pay you because they're scared to go to court. I blocked the company that was messaging me and had nothing to do with it. But before I blocked them, I said, send me a letter in the mail so I know it's real. And they never did. And I'm like, if this is a legit law office and they're trying to take me to court, I'd be getting served papers on my front doorstep. And that never happened. But what I learned from it was maybe you should start paying for some imagery or going to unsplash.com or Pixabay and getting these copyright-free images that you can use that won't get you in trouble in the future. And thankfully, all the images we use, we either license or are actually our pictures. And so we don't have to deal with that anymore. But it's one of those mistakes that I'm sure a lot of small businesses make when they first start because not a lot of people have a lot of media to share about their product or their services. And so you steal from Google or, whatever it may be. So just always use your noggin when you're trying to find imagery.
Yeah, it just, it's different when you're in high school and you're pulling images off for a little presentation. It's very different story when all of a sudden you're using it to generate revenue.
Yep.
Now, it may not seem a big deal to you because you're not generating significant revenue,
right?
But if Coca-Cola stole an image from somebody and used it for their multi-million-dollar ad campaign, it would be a huge deal. And you have to look at it from that perspective and say, okay, I know I'm small change, but because this is for a business, I can't really do that, even if I don't think it's a big deal, right? So with my show, I wanted music in my show, but I'm aware that I cannot do that because I don't pay for rights for it. Because it's realistically, that's impossible. I don't make enough money off the show to pay that. That's ridiculous. And no one's listening to my show, so that way they can listen to Taylor Swift's song without credit. That's not what's happening.
Right. Yep.
So I found a way. I have my show on the radio. And that kind of worked.
Yeah.
But that was the, this was all part of my plan. I did my 10 episode season, gave myself a month to market and promote. And I talked to my brother-in-law about it because he works in entertainment. And I was like, hey, how am I going to do this? He's like, you can't, it'll get taken down. The second your show gets big enough, it'll get taken down.
Yeah, it's sad.
And thankfully I thought about that at the time. And I was like, I want to make sure this problem doesn't happen.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because it could have really, bit me. So I totally agree. It's always think long term. Is this going to work in the future? If I was bigger, would this be working? And consider those things. If there's any kind of question in your stomach about it, it's not the way to go. You got to find something else. So getting to the end of the show. Again, how can people best follow you and get in contact? What can we kind of see coming up? And moving forward, how can people best support you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Steve's Hemp. Every handle's different, and they'll probably be different when this releases. But just search that, and we should pop up, and that's where you can follow us. We have a few new things coming soon. So this storefront will be, well, I call it a storefront, but this fulfillment center is what that will be. We'll be packaging product here, making it, shipping it out, whatever it may be. We're focusing on some more products with flour in it, so hemp flour that you can smoke. That was one thing that we really didn't focus on when we first started. One, because I didn't want to get in trouble with shipping it in the mail because it doesn't smell 100% like weed, but somebody could, it's close enough where, if somebody got it, stolen or somebody ripped into somebody's package, it'd be questionable. So we're looking into that more, working with more local companies to kind of figure out some collaboration. Said that weird. Collaboration products and going from there. And supporting me is probably just following me on social media or getting in touch with me and seeing how we can help you with our products. Or if you just want to BS, I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, you'll have to check it out. So I'm sure we'll still be doing it. Discount code PASSION if you go to steveshemp.com and you get 20% off anything on the website. And we're going to be, when this releases, we're planning on doing a little tincture, a little like collab thing. So you'll have to do that. It's going to be, that's one of my favorite things about my show is that I've like had all these cool little business opportunities pop up that haven't like generated a lot of income for me or anything like that. But it's just more the fun of like, I had my own logo on a candle.
For sure.
I'm going to have my own logo on a tincture of CBD, like it's just kind of cool stuff. For supporting me, obviously, most people listening already follow me on Instagram at PassionPod. The Patreon page is really where I'm trying to push because I understand that not a lot of people want to pay for things like a show. They don't want to pay for entertainment. I am going to be working a little bit more with some advertisers, so you'll hear a few more commercials, but that's because of the mounting costs of what this is. My mental health has been really suffering because I'm putting way too much energy into everything that is burning me out. And that's obviously like a hard thing for any business owner, but it's really taken away from time with my family, which sucks. So I'm going to be putting a little bit more time into that. But with the Patreon, we're going to have a cool discount program that will be out by the time this is, where you're getting a discount, paying $5 a month to be on a member of my Patreon page, but you'll get a discount where you'll save way more than $5 a month between a whole bunch of different businesses, including Steve's Spot. So patreon.com/passionpod. On Instagram, there's a link tree. You can find everything. So that way you can find however which way you want to support me.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.